Hello everyone, this is Chris Jamel at Exiton Interactive, and by the time we're done with this video, we will have the ability to show and hide individual control groups. We'll use this ability to hide the controls that we don't need, at least when the authenticator starts. So for example, if the user is attempting to log in, all we have to show is the username and password and remember me controls to start. Of course, if the user clicks on, say, the forgot username or forgot password links, we'll have to show the email control, but we'll take care of that later. We will also add a little bit of styling on our info pages to contain the validators within their section. And just in case the user is using a WebKit browser, we'll even throw a little styling in for the scroll bars. And I think without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so let's get started here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start by modifying our control group. So we're going to go into our source folder, components, authenticator, and start with the control group.ts file. So what we're wanting to do here is to, again, add the ability to show and hide control groups. What we're going to do is we're going to start with defining a private getter here, and I called it hidden. So we'll put private get, and this will be hidden group class. So this will just be, well, I guess from that you'll know that basically the way that we're going to hide or show a control group is by applying a CSS class to it, or removing the class. And the class that we're talking about here is going to be the hidden group class. So let's go down here to our methods section. We're going to create a couple of new methods. One's public hide group, and the only thing that the hide group is basically going to do is say this group dom dot class list. So the very start, one of the things that we included in our project was a class list polyfill. Of course, I'd have to look and see what browser support class list out of the box, but like I said, we do have the polyfill included. So in order to hide this group, we're going to say class list dot add, and we're going to add the hidden group class that we just defined. And likewise for show group, create a method, and it's just going to be this group dom dot class list dot remove, and we're going to remove the hidden group class. So with that saved, we sort of basically have to go up the stack here and add the ability into the control pair and the control pair collection. So we'll go to the control pair.ts file to start with. Come down here and do the same thing. Public hide group. Of course, we'll need the ID. And in this one, we'll just say this.find by ID, and then hide group. Same deal with the show, so public show group, pass in an ID, this.find ID .show group. Perfect. Next, of course, the control pair collection. And let everything come up, and we'll come down here and do the same things. So public hide group, pass in the ID. That's just going to be this pairs ID dot hide group ID, and same for the show. Public show group, pass in the ID, and this pairs ID dot show group and ID. So as far as those sort of the structure is concerned, we're able to show and hide. So let me go and close these files now and scroll the notes down. So now we have to define basically what it means to hide a group, and we're going to go into the authenticator.component.scss file. So our SAS file. As usual, I'm going to create an authenticator. Inside of that, I'm going to say that if the class is hidden group, and we'll just say display none. Save that. We'll go into our authenticator.component.ts file, and since we're going to mess with the DOM, we're going to go into the ng after view init method. We're going to scroll down to the bottom, and we just want to test that we're able to hide a group. So I'm going to say this .control pair collection .hide group, and I'll use the key map that we created previously, and we'll just hide the control password confirm. So we'll pass its key in, save that, and return to the browser. Wait for it to finish rebuilding, and now that it's rebuilt, we can see that the confirm password control group has disappeared, and now we just have the password. You can be sure that if we come here, this is the password group, and the password confirm has the hidden group class applied to it. So that seems to be working as intended. I'm going to go ahead and remove this hide statement here. And the next thing that we are going to do is I want to be able to hide particular groups when the control starts. So let's go back to the control group.ts file. Of course, the way that we need to do it, or to specify that it should be hidden at start, we're going to modify the control group config, and we're going to allow us to pass in another property. We're going to call it hide group. It's optional, so we'll use the question mark, and it's a Boolean. So what we're going to do is come down to the constructor for our group, and then we'll simply say, actually I guess I'm going to forget here. Let's go back to the top. I need to import the isNil from Lodash. So we're importing the Lodash isNil function. Back down to our constructor, and in here, guess I actually modified it since then. We're just going to say if and config hide group, and let's say this .hide group. We're going to need that isNil function later, so we're going to leave it up there. So I'm going to save that. So I need to pass more information into my configuration, or into the constructor. So we're constructing the control groups within the control pair collection. So I'm going to return to that. And we are going to modify the create pair config, adding in the same property, so hide group as an optional property, which is a Boolean. We'll go back down to the create method, and this is the create config helper function that we have. All we have to do in here is say hide group, and that's going to be equal to the configuration.hide group that's passed in. So that takes care of that. And now we're going to actually hide some groups. So we'll go back to the authenticator.component.ts file. Still in the ng after view init method. So what we need for the email, what we want to do for hiding, so we'll put hide group. We want to hide the email control if this is login. Keep in mind that this is just the settings for the start. So later on we are going to have to show the email at some point if the user clicks one of the forgot links. But at least to begin with, we want the email control group to be hidden, as well as the email confirm group. So is login as well. Actually, I guess let's just do it this way. The confirm one, so the email group, we want it to be not shown to start with if it's logging in. If the user is registering, we need to show it. The confirm groups, we can hide them by default, so we'll just put true. Password, we're going to need, lost track of where I was. Yep, so the password we're going to need regardless, and we need to hide the confirm one. So hide group, true. And the remember me, hide group if this is register. So if the user is registering, hide the remember me group. And of course we need the username to start with. So I've saved that, let's go back to the browser. We can see on the login that we're only displaying the username, the password, and remember me. In register, just username, password, and email. So that's working correctly. Next thing, let's see. Next thing we're going to tackle is getting rid of the forgot links if the user is trying to register. So to do that, we're going to modify the template. So we're going to the authenticator.component.pug file. And we'll scroll down here. So on the forgot links, we'll put our parentheses, and we're just going to use the ngIf. So is login. So if is login is true, then the forgot links will be shown. And that will take care of that. While we're at it, what we're going to do here is what I had intended for is the inputs. So this basically the form here should take up space and push the buttons down to the bottom. So right now I have the buttons included within the form. What I'm going to do here is just reduce the indentation for the buttons by 1. So we'll pull them out of the form. I'm also going to add a class to the form, and we're just going to call it inputs. So we'll save that. And let's go, and I think we can close the template now. And we're going to return to our SAS file. Let's go ahead and what I'm going to do here is copy in a little bit of styling. I just pulled this out of other projects that I have. Of course, you can find the code in the article. But this is just showing the styling for the scroll bars, again, if the user is using a WebKit browser. Now what we want to do is to add our usual .authenticator. And if you look at the controls as we have them now, what I want, first of all, is I want there to be space, a little bit of space between the controls and the buttons, which is the reason why I pulled the buttons out of the form, so that we can we'll basically set a minimum height for the entire container, and then we'll have the inputs stretch to take up all of the available space, pushing the buttons to the bottom. Right? So that's what we're going to do now. So we want to have the inputs container. So for the inputs container, I'm going to set a min height. It's kind of a crazy number here, but we'll see here in the end. 383 pixels. Display set to flex. Flex direction to be column. So I still want them stacked on top of each other. And then I want the inputs, which is that form class we just added to the form. We'll just say flex 1. So that will push the buttons down to the bottom. Now while we're at it, we're also going to come in here and say .info pages, and I'm going to set the overflow Y to auto. And we'll save and go back to the browser. So we'll see excuse me, that we have a little bit of separation between all of the inputs and the buttons for login, as well as for the register. Of course, one of the main points here is I wanted to have the authenticator to have the same height regardless of whether it was logging in or registering. But you can see now the height for this, or you might not be able to see, is 385 pixels. Same deal if the user is registering. Now we're actually seeing something going on here, and this is the sort of problem that's lurking in the background, and that's that for the info pages, all we're doing is setting the opacity to 0, but they're still there. So what's happening here is if we go to, say, the password info page, you can see that that page is actually taking up the entire space. So much so that at times you have problems. You can't, because I put the overflow on there. So before the overflow, you couldn't even click on the need to register an account link, right? But now our problem is that we're even showing the scroll bar if the user's on the default info page, which is not what we want. So let's start taking care of that. So we'll go back to Visual Studio. I'm going to go back to the control group. And the first thing that I'm going to do is, just as I have this hidden group class, I'm going to create a hidden info. So private get hidden info class. Return hidden info. Perfect. So the next thing that we're going to do is go down to the constructor. Down here, I want to say that yep. So if, and we're going to use the is null. So lodash is nil. This, no, we'll use config. Config dot info ID equals false. So in other words, the control has an information page. What we're going to do is say this info dom dot class list dot add this dot hidden info class. Save that. And as soon as it's rebuilt, oh, it's because I haven't added the style. Doesn't know what hidden group is yet. Let's do that now, actually. So let's go to the authenticator.component.ts or SCSS file. Again, authenticator. We'll say hidden info and display none. Save it. And now we see that when we're on the default here, of course none of them are going to show now, but at least we don't have the scroll bar showing up. Let's go back. And what else do I want to do? Let's go back to the control group.ts file, and we need to add and apply this hidden info class. So let's go down to the hide info method. Instead of returning this animation right away, we're going to say const animation equals, and before I do it again, I'm going to just add the return statement right away. So we'll just return it. Next, I'm going to say animation dot on finish. So we're going to set this method to be this info dom dot class list dot add this hidden info class. So as soon as the hide animation is done, we're going to add the hidden info class. And then let's go down to the show info method. The only thing that we have to do is that before we start to do anything with the showing, we want to say this info dom dot class list dot remove, and we're going to remove the hidden info class. All right. So some people may already know that there's going to be a problem here with that, what we've just done. And we're going to go up and fix that problem here in a second. Actually now. So we'll go to the authenticator.component.ts file. And we'll go down to the show info method. Our problem is that we've just created an on finish sort of callback for our hide animation. But the problem is that when we call hide info here, all we're doing is setting the on finish, callback ourselves here, which is basically just overriding what we've just done. So to fix this, what I'm going to do is come back just before the switch, and I'm going to say let on finish. That is going to be an animation event listener. And next we'll go down here and we'll go, we'll say on finish is equal to animation. Okay, don't put it in there. And animation dot on finish. And then inside of our on finish callback, we're just going to say if lodash is nil on finish. If that's equal to false, then I want to invoke that on finish method. we actually forgot we need to tell it. So we're going to pass in an event, and that event's an animation playback event. So we're basically just caching the onFinish function that's created in the animation to begin with, that's passed in from, or that's returned from the hide info, and then we're going to invoke it in our onFinish method here. We of course need to do the exact same thing down here with the blur hide animation. So we'll say onFinish this.blur hide animation.onFinish. And again, inside of the new onFinish method, if low dash is nil onFinish, if that's equal to false, then we'll do the onFinish. Of course, see how many times I can forget to say that we're going to have passed in an event, which is the animation playback event. We'll go ahead and save that and return to our browser. Let's go ahead and look at the elements. We're going to open up the info container, info pages, and we'll look at the info username. Has the hidden info class tied to it. Click on the username. Our class is removed. We can see it. If we return or remove focus, the class is returned, so it's hidden, and we're back to the default. Now, if you're looking here, you can see the next thing that we're going to fix is the fact that our default info page is being treated, different than every other info page, which we don't like. Doesn't necessarily matter too much in this case, at least as it stands, because the default page is so small, it's not causing the scroll bar to, show or anything like that. But I don't like things to be treated differently. It's easier if everything is treated the same. So let's go back to Visual Studio. What we are going to do is go back to the control group. We're going to do the same thing that we did with the animations for the info, and we're going to pass in the information that we need as opposed to defining it inside of the control group file. And the information, of course, that we need is the class for hidden info. So since I want to pass that in, I'm going to come up to the control group config and, of course, add another property. Call it hidden info class. Type is string. Since it's going to be passed in, we're going to have to keep a reference to it. So we'll private read only hidden info class, type string, defaults to null. We'll go down to the constructor. This hidden info class equals config.hidden info class. Fix this, make it look nice and pretty. And actually, what I'm going to do is take the hidden info class here, and I'm going to cut that. And of course, we need to come down here now and say that we're going to be adding in the hidden info class field. So the underscore hidden info class. Save that. And now we'll go back to the control pair collection. And the hidden info class is going to be the same for every control group. So instead of defining it when we're creating them, we're going to pass it in to the control pair collection when we create it. So we're going to create a hidden info class on its configuration interface. And we're going to have to do the same thing here. We're going to have to private read only hidden info class string null to start with, and this hidden info class config hidden info class. Now we can go down to when we're actually creating them and just add it in here. So hidden info class is equal to this hidden info class. Save it. go back to our authenticator.component.ts file, and I'm going to go and find where the private getters are located. Private get, we're going to paste in the hidden info class getter here. So now we're just defining it in the authenticator.component.ts file. Come down to the constructor, and we need to pass that into our control pair collections constructor. So hidden info class, and it's this hidden info class. Save that. Of course, we need to fix a little bit more. And the next thing that we're going to do is to go down to the hide info method. Alright, so what we need to do is to change this. So again, instead of just returning the animation right away, we'll say const animation equals, again, return this animation, and inside of here say animation dot on finish. So we'll define that to be this default info dom dot class list dot add this dot hidden info class. Perfect. And we'll go down to the show info. And in show info, all we have to do is before we start to animate the default info is to say this default info dom dot class list dot remove this, oops, this dot hidden info class. We will save that and head back to our browser here, and again I'll just open it up so we can see the default, of course, is shown to start with. Let's click on the username. The hidden info class is removed from the username info and it's applied to the default, so now it's being hidden. And we can check, basically all of them, I guess, all of them being the username and password for this case. If we return back to the default, hidden info is on all the other controls and removed from the default. And you can check to see that everything is working the same on the register side of things as well. So I think that will take care of this video. And I guess the last video I said we'll start working on animation. This is, animation in a sense, not the one I was intending. So I think we'll still continue with that and probably do a little bit more animation in the next video. But as usual, I'll have to figure it out while I'm working on it. Thank you for taking the time to watch our video. I know that your time is valuable. If you liked the video, please subscribe to our channel and click the thumbs up button, as well as share the video with your friends. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please leave them in the comments section below. And once again, thank you, and I will talk to you in the next video.